The Vedanta philosophy. The Vedanta philosophy, as it is generally called at the present day, really comprises all the various sects that now exist in India. Thus there have been various interpretations, and to my mind they have been progressive, beginning with the dualistic or Dvaita, and ending with the non-dualistic or Advaita. The word Vedanta literally means the end of the Vedas, the Vedas being the scriptures of the Hindus. Sometimes in the West by the Vedas are meant only the hymns and the rituals of the Vedas. But at the present time these parts have almost gone out of use, and usually by the word Vedas in India, the Vedanta is meant. All our commentators, when they want to quote a passage from the scriptures, as a rule, quote from the Vedanta, which has another technical name with the commentators, the Shrutas. The term Shruti, meaning that which is heard, though including the whole of the Vedic literature, is chiefly applied by the commentators to the Upanishads. Now all the books known by the name of Vedanta were not entirely written after the ritualistic portion of the Vedas. For instance, one of them, the Isha Upanishad, forms the 40th chapter of the Yajur Veda, that being one of the oldest parts of the Vedas. There are other Upanishads which form portions of the Brahmanas or ritualistic writings, and the rest of the Upanishads are independent, not comprised in any of the Brahmanas or any other parts of the Vedas. But there is no reason to suppose that they were entirely independent of other parts, for as we well know, many of these have been lost entirely, and many of the Brahmanas have become extinct. So it is quite possible that the independent Upanishads belonged to some Brahmanas, which in course of time fell into disuse, while the Upanishads remained. The Upanishads are also called forest books or Aranyakas. The Vedanta, then, practically forms the scriptures of the Hindus, and all systems of philosophy that are orthodox have to take it as their foundation. Even the Buddhists and the Jains, when it suits their purpose, will quote a passage from the Vedanta as authority. All schools of philosophy in India, although they claim to have been based upon the Vedas, took different names for their systems. The last one, the system of Vyasa, took it to stand upon the doctrine of the Vedas more than previous systems did, and made an attempt to harmonize the preceding philosophies, such as the Sankhya and the Nyaya, with the doctrines of the Vedanta. So it is especially called the Vedanta philosophy, and the sutras or aphorisms of Vyasa are, in modern India, the basis of the Vedanta philosophy. Again, these sutras of Vyasa have been variously explained by different commentators. In general, there are three sorts of commentators in India now. For their interpretations have arisen three systems of philosophies and sects. One is the dualistic, or Dvaita. A second is the qualified non-dualistic, or Vishittavaitata, and the third is the non-dualistic, or Advaita. Of these, the dualistic and the qualified non-dualistic include the largest number of Indian people. The non-dualists are comparatively few in number. Now I will try and lay before you the ideas that are contained in all these three sects, but before going on I will make one remark, that these different Vedanta systems have one common psychology, and that is the psychology of the Sankhya system. The Sankhya psychology is very much like the psychologies of Nyaya and Vaishika systems, differing only in minor particulars. All the Vedantaists agree on 3 points. They believe in God, in the Vedas as revealed, and in cycles. We have already considered the Vedas. The belief about cycles is as follows. All matter throughout the universe is the outcome of one primal matter called Akasha, and all force, whether gravitation, attraction, or repulsion, or life, is the outcome of one primal force called prana. Prana acting on Akasha is creating or projecting the universe. At the beginning of a cycle, Akasha is motionless, unmanifested. Then prana begins to act, more and more, creating grosser and grosser forms out of Akasha, plants, animals, men, stars, and so on. After an incalculable time, this evolution ceases and involution begins, everything being resolved back through finer and finer forms into the original Akasha and prana, when a new cycle follows. Now there is something beyond Akasha and prana. Both can be resolved into a third thing called Mahat, the cosmic mind. This cosmic mind does not create Akasha and prana, but changes itself into them. We will now take up the beliefs about mind, soul, and God, according to the universally accepted Sankhya psychology. In perception, in the case of vision, for instance, there are, first of all, the instruments of vision, the eyes. Behind the instrument, the eyes, is the organ of vision, or indriya, the optic nerve in its centers, which is not the external instrument, but without which the eyes will not see. More still is needed for perception. The mind, or manas, must come and attach itself to the organ. And besides this, a sensation must be carried to the intellect, or buddhi, the determinative reactive state of the mind. When the reaction comes from buddhi, along with it flashes the external world and egoism. Here then is the will, but everything is not complete. Just as every picture, being composed of successive impulses of light, must be united on something stationary to form a whole, so all the ideas in the mind must be gathered and projected on something that is stationary, relatively to the body and mind, that is, on what is called the soul, or Purusha, or Atman. According to the Sankhya philosophy, the reactive mind, state of the mind, called buddhi, or intellect, is the outcome, the change, or a certain manifestation of the Mahat, or cosmic mind. The Mahat becomes changed into vibrating thought, and that becomes in one part changed into the organs, and in the other part into the finer particles of matter. Out of the combination of all of these, the whole of this universe is produced. Behind even Mahat, the Sankhya conceives of a certain state which is called Avgata, or unmanifested, where even the manifestation of mind is not present, but only the cause exists. It is also called Prakriti. Beyond this Prakriti, and eternally separated from it, is the Purusha, the soul of the Sankhya, which is without attributes and omnipresent. The Purusha is not the door, but the witness. The illustration of the crystal is used to explain the Purusha. The latter is said to be like a crystal without any color, before which different colors are placed, and then it seems to be colored by the colors before it, but in reality it is not. The Vedantists reject the Sankhya idea of a soul in nature. They claim that between them there is a huge gulf to be bridged over. On the one hand, the Sankhya system comes to nature, and then at once it has to jump over to the other side and come to the soul, which is entirely separate from nature. How can these different colors, as the Sankhya calls them, be able to act on that soul, which by its nature is colorless? So the Vedantists from the very first affirm that this soul and this nature are one. Even dualistic Vedantists admit that the Atman, or God, is not only the efficient cause of the universe, but also the material cause. But they only say so in so many words. They do not really mean it, for they try to escape from their conclusions in this way. They say there are three existences in the universe: God, soul, and nature. Nature and soul are, as it were, the body of God, and in this sense it may be said that God and the whole universe are one. But this nature and all these various souls remain different from each other through all eternity. Only at the beginning of a cycle do they become manifest, and when the cycle ends, they become fine and remain in a fine state. The Advaita Vedantists, the non-dualists, reject this theory for the soul, and having nearly the whole range of the Upanishads in their favor, build their philosophy entirely upon them. All the books contained in the Upanishads have one subject, one task before them, to prove the following theme. Just as by the knowledge of one lump of clay we have the knowledge of all the clay in the universe, so what is that? Knowing which we know everything in the universe. The idea of the Advaitists is to generalize the whole universe into one, that something which is really the whole of this universe, and they claim that this whole universe is one, that it is one being manifest itself in all these various forms. They admit that what the Sankhya calls nature exists, but say that nature is God. It is this being, the Sat, which has become converted into all this, the universe, man's soul, and everything that exists. Mind and Mahat are but the manifestations of that one Sat. But then the difficulty arises that this would be pantheism. How come that Sat, which is unchangeable, as they admit, for that which is absolute is unchangeable, to be changed into that which is changeable and perishable? The Advaitists here have a theory which they call Virarta, Vada, or apparent manifestations. According to the dualist and the Sankhyas, the whole of this universe is the evolution of primal nature. According to some of the Advaitists and some of the dualists, the whole of this universe is evolved from God. And according to the Advaitists proper, the followers of Shankaracharya, the whole universe is the apparent evolution of God. God is the material cause of this universe, but not really, only apparently. The celebrated illustration used is that of the rope and the snake, where the rope appeared to be the snake, but was not really so. The rope did not really change into the snake. Even so, this whole universe, as it exists, is that being. It is unchanged, and all the changes we see in it are only apparent. These changes are caused by desha, kala, nimitta, space, time, and causation, or according to the higher psychological generalization, by nama and rupa, name and form. It is by name and form that one thing is differentiated from another. The name and form alone cause a difference. In reality, they are one and the same. Again, it is not, the Vedantas say, that there is something as phenomena and something as noumenon. The rope is changed into the snake, apparent only, and when the delusion ceases, the snake vanishes. When one is in ignorance, he sees the phenomena and does not see God. When he sees God, this universe vanishes entirely for him. Ignorance, or Maya, as it is called, is the cause of all this phenomena, the absolute, the unchangeable, being taken as this manifested universe. This Maya is not absolute zero, nor non-existence. It is defined as neither existence nor non-existence. It is not existence, because that can be said only of the absolute, the unchangeable, and in this sense, Maya is non-existence. Again, it cannot be said it is non-existence, for if it were, it could never produce phenomena. So it is something which is neither, and in the Vedanta philosophy it is called anirvachanya, or inexpressible. Maya, then, is the real cause of the universe. Maya gives the name and form to what Brahman or God gives the material, and the latter seems to have been transformed into all of this. The Advaitas, then, have no place for the individual soul. They say individual souls are created by Maya. In reality, they cannot exist. If there were only one existence throughout, how could it be that I am one, and you are one, and so forth? We are all one, and the cause of evil is the perception of duality. As soon as I begin to feel that I am separate from this universe, then first comes fear, and then comes misery. When one hears another, one sees another. That is small. Where one does not see another, where one does not hear another, that is the greatest. That is God. In that greatest is perfect happiness. In small things there is no happiness. According to the Advaita philosophy, then, this differentiation of matter, these phenomena are, as it were, for a time, hiding the real nature of man. But the latter really has not been changed at all. In the lowest worm, as well as in the highest human being, the same divine nature is present. The worm form is a lower form in which the divinity has been more overshadowed by Maya. That is the highest form, in which it has been least overshadowed. Behind everything, the same divinity is existing, and out of this comes the basis of morality. Do not injure another. Love everyone as your own self, because the whole universe is one. In injuring another, I am injuring myself. In loving another, I am loving myself. From this also springs the principle of Advaita morality, which has been summed up in one word: self-abnegation. The Advaita says, this little personalized self is the cause of all my misery. This individualized self, which makes me different from all other beings, brings hatred and jealousy and misery, struggle, and all other evils. And when this idea has been gotten rid of, all struggle will cease, all misery will vanish. So this is to be given up. We must always hold ourselves ready, even to give up our lives for the lowest being. When a man has become ready even to give up his life for a little insect, he has reached the perfection which the Advaitas want to attain. And at that moment, when he has become thus ready, the veil of ignorance falls away from him, and he will feel his own nature. Even in this life, he will feel that he was one with the universe. For a time, as it were, the whole of this phenomenal world will disappear from him, and he will realize what he is. But so long as the karma of this body remains, he will have to live. This state, when the veil has vanished and yet the body remains for some time, is what the Vedantists call the Jivan Mukti, the living freedom. If a man is deluded by a mirage for some time and one day the mirage disappears, if it comes back again the next day, or at some future time, he will not be deluded. Before the mirage first broke, the man could not distinguish between the reality and the deception. But when it is once broken, as long as he has organs and eyes to work, he will see the image, but will be no more deluded. the fine distinction between the actual world and the mirage he has caught, and the latter cannot delude him any more. So when the Vedantist has realized his own nature, the whole world has vanished for him. It will come back again, but no more the same world of misery. The prison of misery has been changed into Sat, Chit, Ananda, existence absolute, knowledge absolute, bliss absolute, and the attainment of this is the goal of the Advaita philosophy. End of lecture. The above address was delivered before the Graduate Philosophical Society of Harvard University, March 25, 1896.